hello, inspiring investors, developers, builders, or anyone interested in residential development. My name's Nathan Battershall, and I'm the host of the Residential Developer Podcast. Just a little bit of personal background about myself. I've been in the industry in and around property development for around about 15 years, working especially in the area of building design, working in regards to managing projects all the way through to pre-construction, but also working around project management, also development management, land acquisition. And the last 5 or 6 years, I've been doing development projects myself, doing some small townhouse developments, duplexes, and also some land subdivisions. This first episode of the podcast is just really an introductory episode. It's one where I want to help you get to know myself as the host of the podcast, but more importantly, I want to really paint a picture around the why behind this podcast. Very much so that our aim for this podcast is to be a toolbox, a place of equipping for anyone that is either a budding investor or developer or someone who's interested or someone who's on the precipice of wanting to step into this space. A little bit of background about myself. I've been in and around property development for around about 15 years. First and foremost, it was very much so as a building designer, owning a company that very much specialised in working with residential developers and investors doing residential projects, working all the way through the pre-construction phase from planning, dealing with council, design, managing consultants, managing approvals, tendering to builders, project management, development management, land acquisition, all the way through. So I've very much been in and around that space. And about 5 years ago, I realised I was scratching myself at my head and I thought, I've spent so much time helping developers generate wealth. I've spent so much time helping developers produce their own projects, looking at sites, looking at the potential of sites, looking at the development permissibility of sites, looking at the potential of sites. And I realised, why am I playing a small game? Why am I not stepping into this space myself? So that very much brought me about 5 or 6 years ago into the space of beginning my own property development journey. And as a result, now I'm doing some smaller projects and now starting to push into doing some larger subdivision projects and townhouse projects. So very much so for me, that's what's I'm extremely passionate about. But I want to use this podcast to not only share my passion, but also create a space of education for people that want to learn, who want to grow, who want to have a toolbox or have a place of equipping where you can tap into this space and really exponentially grow your development journey. I was really inspired to start this podcast. It's probably been a 2-year journey. I've had clients, consultants, friends and family in my ear for quite a while now, close to 2 years, to encouraging me to start a podcast or develop a YouTube channel of some sort. So I've been just pushing it to the side for so long, and I realised probably a couple of months ago that it's time to stop thinking about it. It's time to start putting some action to it. I've developed 15 years of education and knowledge. I know a great number of people in the industry, so I thought, why not create a show? Why not create a podcast that can equip everyday residential developers, whether that be someone who's just about to start out or someone who wants to set up a plan of attack over the next couple of years to do their first project, or whether you're a builder who wants to start doing your own projects, whether you're someone who's already done a few projects but you want to improve, you want to continue to grow. So this is going to be a space for both experienced and novice residential developers and investors, where you can just really use this as a space to every week just to be equipped and encouraged and strengthened and just do what you do a whole lot better. So, very much for me, the why behind this podcast, the why is so that we can equip hundreds of different residential developers across our nation, across Australia, to be able to do what they do better. I remember when I did my first residential development, I was very much, luckily for me, I had a lot of education. So I'd walked the journey with a lot of my clients in the past. So I'd already had over 10 years experience walking closely with investors and developers and builder developers. So I feel like I had a bit of an upper hand, but I know for my first project, there was still so many areas I was unsure of. There was so many areas where I just didn't feel equipped. I didn't feel knowledgeable enough. I didn't feel like I had the tools to carry out that process. So I can only imagine how someone who hasn't had that experience that I've had when it comes to doing your first project. So for me, very much, what's really inspired me is to create such a space where people can listen to this podcast week in, week out. You can go away with a whole lot more knowledge, but practical tips, practical tools that you can take into your projects, but also so you can form a knowledge bank, so that you can form a bank of team, and we'll bring guests and people onto this podcast where you can even tap into some of that knowledge bank for your projects. Our idea is to create a podcast that's consistent. So in saying that, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be releasing an episode that's going to drop 6 a.m. every Wednesday, right in the middle of your week, right in that hump day, right in that middle part of the week where you need a bit of a boost, a bit of a kick. So it's going to drop at 6 a.m. So, you could be a tradie. It could be something you can listen to on the way to work. It could be something you could throw in the ears on the tools. If you're at the gym, you can listen to it in the gym, in the car, just something that you can really kickstart your Wednesday. So we're going to consistently be dropping an episode every single week. So at 6 o'clock, 6 a.m. every single Wednesday, you're going to get an episode. What I want to encourage you to do is to subscribe on your favorite channel, whether that be Apple, Spotify, YouTube. We're going to be on all the main channels for the podcast. What I want to encourage you to do is click subscribe. That way, as soon as that new episode drops, you'll be notified, and it can be there ready for you to listen and educate yourself as you grow as a residential developer. We're going to be covering a huge number of different topics over the course of the life of this podcast. We're going to be talking about DA versus CDC pathways. We're going to be talking about all different types of residential projects that you can do, such as duplexes, dual occupancies. We'll talk about townhouses, villas, seniors living. We'll talk about terraces via the CDC pathway. We'll talk about duplexes via CDC. We'll be talking about manor houses. We'll talk about NDIS housing. We'll talk about small land subdivisions. We'll talk about large lot land subdivisions. And we'll also cover topics such as doing your due diligence, how to find off-market sites, how to develop a world-class team, how to find a world-class team. We're also going to be talking about areas like how to get financing. We're going to be talking about doing joint ventures. We'll talk about different forms of settlements, whether it be delayed settlements, options. We'll talk about different aspects of the project. We'll be talking about also not just the development side of things. We'll be also talking about the approval processes, time frames. We'll talk about construction costs. We'll talk about delays. We'll talk about how to avoid variations. We'll talk about how to tender. We'll talk about how to deal with real estate agents, how to get comparables. We'll be talking about also areas such as personal development, how to grow as a leader, how to grow as personally. We'll also talk about how to stay healthy, both mentally, physically. We'll also be talking about how to develop strong relationships, both with your family, with your spouse, how to develop strong relationships with your team, how to create an empowering culture around the projects you're doing with your consultants and with your builder and with your contractors and various people. So there's going to be a range of topics that we're going to cover. I'm also excited to let you know that we've got an amazing lineup of guests that are going to be coming onto this podcast. I consider these people leaders in their field, leaders in the space that they are skilled at in regards to doing residential developments. We're going to be bringing on town planners, real estate agents, buyers agents. We're going to be bringing on architects, building designers, interior designers, project managers, development managers. We'll bring on various different consultants. We'll bring on mindset, people that specialize in mindset, leadership development. We'll be bringing on an array of different guests that I believe will give you a toolkit, a war chest to be able to absolutely crush it in the space of your residential developments. Another exciting regular element to this podcast that I'm going to be bringing you is what I call our residential development shark tank. What this is going to be, it's going to be regular updates on projects. We're going to discuss some projects that are going ahead, but we're also going to discuss some projects that are not going ahead. But more importantly, we're going to discuss the deep why these projects work or don't work. So we're going to dive into all aspects of due diligence, feasibility, site constraints. We're going to really pull this thing apart. And what it's going to do, it's going to really help you understand of how to look at a project, how to navigate a project, how to investigate a project. And we'll be able to really just dive right down deep into that particular project. So that's an exciting element on this podcast that we're going to bring to you monthly as well. So I'm really excited for you to come on the journey with us as we navigate residential development. I want to encourage you once again, make sure you hit subscribe on your favorite channel for this podcast. I want to encourage you also just to follow us on Instagram at The Residential Developer. There we can interact, you can communicate with us, and also please go across to our website, www.theresidentialdeveloper.com.au. I'm excited to go on this journey with you. Let's get into it.